Hi. I'm not dead yet. I've just, been hibernating for a while. Underwent a whole metamorphosis. That's right, I got a redesign. I can see a lot better now, got some fur to keep me warm during the colder seasons, and my nostrils were traded for actual gills, so I could be considered a fish now. Well, anyway, now that I'm fully rested, time to talk about some vid games. I wonder how long it has been. Holy mackerel! It's been 9 months! That's like, let's see here, do that, multiply it, carry the 3. More than 8! Shoot, I gotta find something to talk about quick. Let's see, I could discuss the political implications of cookie clicker lore, examine the current mental state of the Hollow Knight Silksong community, or maybe I could just talk about some of the games I've been playing in my absence. I did have a lot of time to play a lot of games of different genres, some new, some that have been sitting on my backlog for a while. It's helped me open myself up to some new tastes and experiences actually. But anyway, I'll talk about a handful of them and share my thoughts, because I think they're kinda neat. Without further ado, I'm Cab, the BugFish gaming nerd, and this is what I've been up to. Ever played XCOM or any sort of tactical game where your attack missed because the game said so? Yes, because missing a clear shot at point blank range makes total sense. Well, SteamWorld Heist takes that frustration away and makes weapon accuracy skill-based rather than luck-based. In this 2D game taking place in the SteamWorld series, you play as a ragtag crew of steambots who infiltrate and plunder enemy spacecraft for their sweet loot while kicking butt and bringing down enemy factions. It plays fairly similar to most other turn-based strategy games where you move your characters and shoot to end your turn. Except the cool thing is you can manually aim your shots. The clean, easy to read 2D perspective of the levels creates a unique challenge for the player. You can hide behind cover to avoid getting shot, but so can the enemy, so sometimes you'll have to ricochet your shots off the walls in order to hit them, and it's pretty satisfying when you do so. Some levels require you to beat them as quickly as possible, otherwise more enemies will spawn. Risk and reward plays a huge aspect in this game. Do you spend your turns moving in and out of a level, or do you try to get as much loot as possible? And you can't always go in guns blazing either. Your crew can only suffer a few shots before they go down, so their positioning around cover is the most crucial aspect to keeping them alive. Your loadout and the crewmates you bring is just as important too. There's different characters you can hire to join your crew, with different skills and roles to create a bunch of unique synergies. Quite a number of different weapons too to suit your approach. You can snipe enemies from afar, or get close and personal with shotguns. All playstyles are honestly fun to tinker with. There are 3 different enemy factions you'll fight across 3 worlds, and they each bring a different learning curve to the table with different quirks and mechanics. It's all a fair challenge honestly. This game is just very engaging, and it doesn't require too much strategic thinking that you end up spending over 5 minutes on your turn deciding where to move your characters. Compared to other strategy games, it's a very beginner-friendly one. I might consider getting SteamWorld Heist 2, seeing how that one seems like a very vibrant and pleasant-looking game, with this whole sea theme going on rather than the space theme of the first. Next game, we're gonna switch up genres a bit. I've played quite a handful of roguelikes and horror games in my life, 2 of my favorite game genres. So when I first stumbled upon Monstrum, a survival horror game which supposedly had roguelike elements, I got a little giddy. A mishmash of immersive tension and fear with challenging rogue elements. Sounds pretty interesting on paper, but does it work? In Monstrum, you wake up on a desolate cargo ship and quickly find yourself hunted by monsters. Spooky. Your main objective is to find a way off the ship, and not die, of course. Pertaining to the roguelike aspect, there is a bit of randomization here and there. The layout of the ship is random every time you start up a new game. The items you find are in random locations, and there are 3 different escape routes you can take, each with their own set of objectives you need to meet. Whatever route you choose is up to you, and you can flip-flop between the objectives at any time. The game features 3 different monsters, where one of them will hunt you down every game. Each monster has their own quirks and abilities to understand and overcome, like the ghost face looking feller that can sprint and bust down doors, and the slime creature that can teleport around the ship via the vents. There's a handful of items you can use to alleviate your struggle and use to your advantage. Flashlights help you detect one of the monsters, who makes almost all light sources go nuts when they're in the vicinity. You can create hazardous fire traps if you have a gasoline cannon lighter. There are various noise distraction items you can use to bait the monsters and piss them off, my favorite. And of course the objective items which you have to bring to their respective escape route. Aside from all these items, there are some collectible notes and tape recorders which entail the lore of the game. Sometimes Monstrum can feel a bit too unfair at times though. I mean, games can last up to an hour or longer, as you might spend a long time searching through every room if you want to find that one key item you need, but run into one of the monsters and your progress is undone. This wouldn't be a problem if the notes you find were helpful and gave you a hint where items were instead of being purely for story purposes. As a roguelike, there's not a whole lot going on for it. The random map layout and item placement are the two things going for it, but those elements don't feel too prominent, especially when there's hardly any distinct randomized rooms. It's better on the horror side of things, I will say. The interior of the ship is always full of twisting corridors that you can't tell where the monster might pop up. The chase music is loud and blaring, keeping you alert and afraid. And the monster designs and their behaviors are somewhat interesting, and have this element of unpredictability in tandem with the layout of the ship, especially at the start of runs where you don't know which monster will hunt you until they appear, creating a bit of tense anticipation. I wouldn't say Monstrum is necessarily a bad game, just a game that needed a lot more polish. Good as a horror game, meh as a roguelike. But that doesn't mean this vicious waz is in vain, it just needs a better execution, because seeing a crossover of different genres is really interesting. And hey, I heard this game has a sequel. It might be worth checking out. Oh. Okay, maybe I don't want to play something nearly as difficult or outright unavailable. I think Cattails is just the right remedy. Cattails Wildwood Story is the sequel to its predecessor of the same name. Most would describe this one as Stardew Valley with the vibe of the Warrior Cat books by Aaron Hunter, and I'd say that's a fairly accurate description. You play as a cat and manage your own colony of cats in the wild. You'll be hunting for prey, gathering herbs and berries, battling enemy cats, and forging relationships with your fellow cats throughout a seasonal time system. Yep, I'd say that ticks all the boxes. Oh, and you can grow your own garden. Farming aspect, check. There's also a main story and quest to follow along. I mean, it is in the name. The first Cattails is a little dated in comparison, but I found it to be a nice little game to pour some hours into. Everything that game had, the sequel improves upon in a number of ways. For example, the ability to run is not tied to a cooldown based skill anymore, and you can run all you want. Doesn't sound like a big deal, but trust me, Cattail fans were not looking too hot at the time. Other improvements include better and more elaborate colony customization, better combat, being able to recruit cats in your colony to join you in your adventures, whereas in the first game you would be going solo for the most part. The first game had dungeons containing puzzles as part of the story. Wildwood Story also has dungeons containing puzzles, but this time at the end there's bosses to fight. Not very great bosses for this sort of game, but it has bosses. Kinda neat. The art styles between the two games are pretty similar with the use of pixel art, but I find the second game to have way smoother visuals and utilizes hand-drawn images for portraits during dialogue with other cats. The UI is also better as it's more organized. Player info like your health and hunger meters are more stylized and easier to read. Mechanically speaking, Wildwood Story isn't that wild, just a fresh coat of paint over the first game. It's a simple survival game with management elements, but it's a nice little game to unwind to, especially if you're a cat person. Can't say I'm one, considering half of me is what most cats crave, but regardless, this game is cute, cozy, and everything right with the world. But how about something that appeals to bug people, something I can get behind? Bugos is a fairly obscure indie game that I picked up during one of those genre-specific Steam sales they do every now and then, in particular the RTS Fest. In Bugos, you take control of an army of hostile bug aliens to combat humans in an attempt to take over their little colonized planet. You go from level to level with the goal of wiping out all human enemies and their buildings. It's a pretty straightforward game with a handful of areas and their levels. Every time you beat a new level, you can get some evolution points to spend on the evolutionary skill tree and make your Bugos a little stronger. You can unlock new unit types, upgrade them to give them passive perks, and unlock new buildings for your builder bugs to build. Aside from directing where your different unit types go, most of this game is just planning and building structures to advance. Your little bug dudes spawn from hive nests, and the more you have, the faster they spawn if you have enough nutrients, the game's main resource. You want to make sure you have an ample supply of them so you can keep your arthropod army always at the ready. Of course, you may need to consider your defenses and build flesh walls and spore cannons in order to keep the humans from attacking your hives. The game's challenge can vary depending on the setup and what skills you spend your evolution points on. Early game can be pretty rough as you don't have a lot of unit types unlocked or have the nutrients to consistently spawn them. But as soon as you get some upgrades and find a viable strategy that results in you stomping the humans hard, it's smooth sailing from there. It's not until you beat the base game that the game becomes significantly more challenging. There's post-game levels that were added sometime after the game's release, and honestly, you're going to need specific strategies and setups in order to beat them, because they are tough as nails. Your starting position in these levels are either pretty tight and small, not leaving much room for building, or you're just outright surrounded in every direction by new human units that cause chaos quickly. But it's honestly a fun challenge. The pixel art is also pretty cute, despite the fact that you play as bloodlusted insects hell-bent on death and destruction. There's a couple cutscenes for the intro and the end of the game, and even though they're short, I was immediately hooked because of them. I also like that the overworld map looks kinda like the intermission screens in Doom. It's kinda neat. You know, as a fellow bug myself, or at least half a bug, I love this game. It's simple but addictive in a way. It's kinda cathartic to raise a swarm of insect creatures who are clearly the bad guys, and utterly wreak havoc. Sometimes I pity the humans when I'm about to beat the level and start rooting for them. Psych! Buggos all the way! Apparently the game's getting a sequel, which I look forward to the additions and changes they'll make. You know, I find it kinda neat that all the games I've talked about so far coincidentally have had sequels or is one. Except you. Anyway, let's take a look at the next game. It isn't a video about different indie games if Balatro isn't brought up at least once. And I know everyone has rambled about this game already, but Balatro is just so much fun. Something something, big number go up, something something, dopamine. I mean, come on, it must be worth playing if it literally won an award for Indie Game of the Year in 2024. Anyway, for a brief summary of the game for those who aren't in the loop, in Balatro you have to create poker hands to score a certain amount of chips, which the required amount increases with each new blind. With the money you earn, you can buy many different cards to help you increase your scoring potential, like jokers, which have varying effects, like adding a constant value to your chip or mult numbers, or directly multiplying your total chips before it scores, which you'll definitely need when facing the boss blinds, the third blind of an ante, which have negative effects to hinder you. Honestly, it can be a bit confusing explaining a game like this, but it helps that it's literally just poker, as a roguelike. So there is that element of familiarity that makes it easy to pick up and play, even if you don't know all the mechanics from the get-go. And even if you don't know how to play poker, everything about the game feels natural and intrinsic. There's a reference guide to the different hands you can play, and everything is explained. And aside from looking really nice, the aesthetic helps sell the welcoming vibe. From a design perspective, everything looks clear and fun to look at. Bold, vibrant colors, an organized UI, the CRT filter which you can toggle on and off, chill music that loops pretty well. A fine, cozy game Balatro is, and it can be as challenging as you want it to be. Most roguelikes can beat you to a pulp if you're not careful enough and die to the most trivial things, but Balatro does have a sense of fairness. There are several different builds that you can make that are totally doable. Sometimes you do get screwed over because luck isn't on your side or you made a slight miscalculation, but that's just a roguelike thing. Plus, the game's got a lot of replay value, 150 different jokers to use in your runs, 20 different starting decks with varying effects to enhance your runs, and 8 different difficulty stakes, each adding one new condition to the last to spice up the gameplay. You can pour hundreds of hours into this game, and in each run you have the potential to make some ridiculous build. Now, I haven't dedicated that much time yet, I haven't really touched the endless mode all that much, I'm still sane. Probably going to lose my sanity to this addiction at some point, but my mind is crystal clear enough to say this game is well worth the money. Last game on this list is one that has been around for some time and I've been playing on and off for some time. I'm surprised I haven't put a lot of time into this one before. I got Terraria a few years ago, played it for a few hours then dropped the game for a long time, but I've gotten back to it, sunk several more hours into it, and just realized how much fun it can be. Terraria is your run-of-the-mill action-adventure sandbox game, or rather, the game that made it the standard of its genre. I think I avoided it for the longest time because I've compared it to Minecraft, the more iconic epitome of sandbox games. And having played that game a dozen times throughout the years and not finding nearly as much enjoyment as other people do when they play the game, I imagine other games similar to it to be dull and tedious. But that's not really a fair comparison to make because Terraria is its own caliber and not like other creative sandbox games. Sure, it has mining, crafting, and building in it, but there's so much more. A variety of weapons to use against a variety of enemies, a lot of RPG elements, and the sense of progression through exploration and getting better gear. In Minecraft, your objectives stem from your creativity, and while that is unique for a game, I kinda prefer having direct objectives so I know what the hell I'm doing. Terraria manages to offer some sense of natural objectives and direction without it being too vague. Like, as soon as you start finding NPCs and bosses, you can assume you'll find more of them as you explore, so that's something you can strive to do. Sure, Minecraft has the nether and the end you can strive towards, but I feel like Terraria offers way more of that, so you're never out of things to do. You can literally build your own town filled with the friendly NPCs you find, who feel way more vibrant and purposeful than. To be honest though, again, it's not a fair comparison because these are two really different games. I'm really only comparing them because I've seen this debate from time to time online and wanted to share my views. Anyway, there's also bosses, and gosh, there's a lot of them, and they're quite engaging to fight. You'll need to have top gear and skill to beat them, which, I didn't really have the latter when fighting the Brain of Cthulhu. You'll also need to be aware of your surroundings as the terrain might get in the way or other enemies might appear and attack you. It creates this sort of unique challenge where you need to multitask. Another thing I really like about Terraria is its perspective. Relating back to SteamWorld Heist, games in a 2D perspective can be easier to read and control since you can generally see everything around your character instead of having to move a camera or POV around as you would in a third or first person game. This game is even better when you're playing with friends, as you can work together to progress or kick rocks and do your own thing. And that's the great thing about it, it feels like a nice cozy game to get into. Maybe before I had a bias against these kinds of games, but Terraria has certainly helped me open up to them. And that's about it for today. There's a load of other games I've been playing recently that I could also ramble about, but I'd probably be here until the end of time, so I'll have to make do with just these 6. It's really interesting exploring different game genres and diversifying my tastes. It helps fine-tuning what sort of stuff I want to play in the future while chipping away at my backlog. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video. See you later and stay snazzy.